Hannah from the Office Management Group here, back with another webinar for you on the 4 top skills to excel in your office management role. If you're doing office management, you're probably already doing some of these and not realizing it. But I think one of the most important aspects of things like office management positions is understanding the skills that we have already and how we can really enhance those and bring them to life to make our jobs much more easy and simple to do, but also in order to demonstrate the work that we are doing. So in this session today, we will be looking at those top 4 skills that will enable you to be that all-star office manager and why it is so important in these roles. The office management role has in general grown in popularity over the years, and most professionals who take this on are given those responsibilities and new responsibilities at very short notice. So in order to stay ahead, we're going to go into the key skills needed, how you can embrace them, and provide you with the confidence that you need to hopefully excel and nail in your role. So first of all, we're going to have a look at what an office manager is. If you've seen any of our other videos, you'll know that we've talked about this in a couple of them already. And according to the Cambridge Dictionary, an office manager is a person whose job is to be responsible for the organisation of the office, of the work of an office, The office manager is responsible for organising and coordinating office operations and providing administrative support. I don't think personally that that sums it up well enough, given the breadth of responsibilities that we have in these roles. So for me, I sum it up that office managers are responsible for ensuring a safe, healthy, and effective working environment with the minimum disruption for all staff, clients, and contractors. And as John Maxwell said, and you'll have probably come across this quote before, tend to the people and they will tend to the business. And it's really relevant for this role. You interact and engage with every single level across the business. So having the skills to be able to do that, and one of them in particular will be key here, is really important. And as I said, understanding just what those skills are and harnessing them. So we often get called or call ourselves jack of all, master of some, but that is not the full quote here. Do you know what the full quote actually is? It says, jack of all trades, master of none, though oftentimes better than master of one. So it's been changed over the years, I think, to use it in a derogatory way where we say, you know, if we had a bad electrician in, oh, jack of all, you know, jack of all, master of none, or whatever it might be. To me, I say master of some, because in these roles, particularly where we wear so many hats, we can't be an expert in every single area that we support, in every single task that we are given to deal with. So again, think about electrician, engineer for your air conditioning, IT for your infrastructure and telephony, mobiles, stationery, furniture, fit outs, decoration, you know, all the different software and applications that are out there, health and safety, well-being, culture, HR, accounts, accounting, payroll, budget management, compliance, legal. You know, we're asked to look at contracts all the time when we're procuring supplies and services, but we're not lawyers unless you were and you've joined in an office management role, which could have happened. But what you can do is master in some of these areas that you want to, and they can be either the ones that the business requires you to master in because perhaps it's much more part of your role, or the demand is there because, you know, you're doing so much more of that particular area of the job. For example, if health and safety culture is really important in your company and they inject a lot of cash into it and they want to make sure that everything is being done to the letter of the law wherever you are around the world, you might need to be an expert in health and safety in order to fully support your business effectively. But it also might be a case that you decide and you have the power to say, well, actually, I'd really like to dig into these areas more. You might have an interest in HR, in people management, in accounts and accounting, in procurement, and therefore want to go into those areas a little bit deeper than just scratching the surface and having some knowledge of it to become expert. So how do we be more master, as Yoda would say? Well, as I've already mentioned, we do have to be that Jack at so many things, and you can't master in all of them. It's just not possible. And if it was, it's going to take a really long time, but you don't need to be. You can master in some of those trades, in some of those areas. And how we do this is leaning on the many experts around us, both internally and externally, for support, advice, and knowledge. And by that, I mean, for example, if you are doing a fit out in your business, a refurbishment, or you're moving offices, don't just accept when you're sitting in these meetings what they say, particularly if you don't understand what it is that they're talking about. If they're throwing acronyms out there like POW, SOW, ETA, lead times, and so on and so forth, and you're thinking, what does all of this mean? Ask them to talk to you in plain English, ask them to draw it out if you wish to, so you can start to understand what all of these things mean, but also have a better understanding of the impact that that may have on your role or the project or the procurement that you are going through at that time. Ask, and ask again. If you're ever unsure, don't accept it as, you know, that they're the expert and you just don't understand what it is. Ask them what it means. As I said, get them to draw it out. I used to do this with our air conditioning engineers all the time, particularly when they presented me with a big bill or a big quote saying, this needs fixing, the actuator has gone, and the condenser, and all these things that were like, what? The AHU and the fan core unit, the FCUs, and all these different things that I have a better understanding of now. But at the time when I was first sitting in a room with mostly men, explaining all these things to each other and saying, well, how do we fix it? And yada, 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 you know, and having their conversation, I'd say, hold on, guys. Can someone explain to me what you're talking about? Because I'm lost, and I'm the person that has got to go to the managing director, cup in hand, and say, can I have £6,000 please to fix this issue, or to install this new piece of software that will be much more intelligent and talk to our air conditioning system and do all the different things that we want it to do. And if he or she then says to me, what is that getting us? I can then explain it to them, because I've got a much deeper understanding, as well as becoming more master in it for the future. And yeah, as I said, focus where the role permits on 2 or 3 areas that the role or that interest you in the role. So for me, I'm a huge geek and I love health and safety and DSE assessment. So I wanted to master it in those areas, and I'm really glad I did, because it meant I could support my businesses far more effectively. And now, you know, as part of the office management group and portal, I'm able to support clients across the board in these areas too. But I also had a real interest in business continuity planning. And so I did an awful lot of research, went to some workshops and so on to learn much more about effective BCPs and disaster recovery plans. And if you can, make a case for training. So many of our roles don't get funding and don't get supported, but make sure that every time you're going in to ask for training and ask for funding, that you have a why, how, where, what, why, you know, who, when, cost, etc. Attached to it, and give your reasons, because they should be supporting your development here, because ultimately it's going to benefit the business. So what are the top 4 skills for every office manager to have in their arsenal, in my opinion? Well, this is one that comes up time and time again. And trust me when I say I have read a lot of blogs and articles over the years about the very topic of what top 4 skills or top 10 skills, or whatever it might be, should we have as office managers. This one is always on there. Can anybody guess what it is? You've got it. If you've said it, it is organization, being highly organized. And for me, under that banner comes a couple of sub skills, such as multitasking, prioritizing, and timing, timekeeping, and good time management. Why is it so key though? Well, we wear various hats in these roles, where we go from an email thread about the office move budget 1 minute to leaky toilets the next. And so distractions in these roles are really high due to the very nature of them. The tasks go from one extreme and remit to the other at the drop of a hat. So being able to maintain high level organization to get you back and stay on track is really crucial. And that's through things like to-do lists and having an understanding of where you are at, and having things at your fingertips in terms of tools and so on and so forth. The next one for me is being proactive, staying 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the game if you can. Let's picture the scene. You can either A, do proactive checks around your office, identify snags, risks, and possible issues, and fix them before they get brought to your attention by someone else. Or worse, an incident happens or something runs out, something else occurs. Or you can wait for the latter to occur, which is a reactive response, and get bogged down by endless reports of defects around your workplace, lights out, handles falling off doors, and more. And sooner than later, you'll have that never-ending list of issues to fix and problems to resolve. Or worse, you'll never even know about it because no one tells you. Which of those sits better with you? We really need to be proactive in our roles and turn things quite literally on their heads, take ownership to get and stay 1, 2, 3 steps ahead. Doing things like housekeeping checks are a really easy way in slightly larger offices of maybe 20, 30 people upwards, daily, every other day, or weekly as a minimum, to get on top of things that are physical and that are also around our stock and supplies. The next for me is very much about what motivates you in your role, being an actual doer. And it's always about that satisfaction of a job well done. People will not always say thank you in these roles. They are known as thankless jobs, and we're kind of behind the scenes doing all the things that we do, and people don't even really realize what we're doing. So you need to be able to have that gratitude and that self-satisfaction yourself. And it can be a tough one to conquer because sometimes the day will just run its course, take over your mind, and before you know it, you've got home and you think, what have I even achieved today? It's so important in this role to be able to be a thinker, a creator, and a doer. And without those things, you might find yourself lost. This is our internal drive. It's our own internal drive to achieve, produce, develop, and keep growing and continue developing within our career. So do you enjoy what you do? Do you get satisfaction from the majority of things that you do? And where do you get that satisfaction? Having an understanding of that. And finally, at number 4, it is communication, hence why I gave the clue in a few slides earlier about being able to talk to all levels of staff, not just in terms of physical and verbal communication, but in terms of the other types of communication that we have. What sort of listener are we? What sort of communicator are we? What impression do we give both verbally and on written communications like emails, in Slack, on notices that we leave up around the offices? And there are various types here that we can start to look at. So how do we get organized? Well, it's about having all the tools at your fingertips first and foremost. The more you're prepared for, the better most of your days will tend to go. Things like spreadsheets and databases with key information, your office lease information, insurance information, health and safety audits and service dates, a contract store with, what contracts you're in and who with, what you spend with them, notice dates, termination dates, and so on, and access to all your supplier and service provider contacts. And there's so many other tools that you can put and plant at your fingertips to help here. Writing things down, it's an obvious one, but a lot of people don't actually do it. Making a list, whether that's physical or you're using one of the many apps out there. For me, I use Microsoft To Do, and I find it really simple and easy to use. Before you leave the office every night, so you've got a clear head as you head home, you can hopefully sleep better first and foremost, and not wake up and think, oh, did I do this, or what do I need to do here, or whatever it might be. And if you're anything like me, I used to throw pillows or teddy bears, if I had a teddy on my bed, across the room, so I woke up in the morning and remembered what it was that I thought about in the middle of the night when I'd woken up briefly. So yeah, having that list there, going home with it, and then coming in the next morning, seeing that list and saying, right, okay, I know how I need to start the day. It's going to probably get interrupted. It's going to go off track a little bit, but having that every night will give you a really clear head and a focus for what you are going to do. Making and sticking to deadlines and ensuring that these are realistic, monitoring the time that you tend to spend on tasks that you're currently completing so that you have a really realistic idea of how long they take you, and then you can manage your own expectations and that of others as well. So if you think, oh, okay, only takes me about 15 minutes to go through and clean up my emails every day, or to, update this risk assessment, or to do a DSE report write-up, or to put the invoices through and approve them, and actually you time it and you realize it's taking you maybe half an hour, 40 minutes, there's a big difference there. So trying to gather an understanding of how long tasks actually take you, and then being able to stick to those deadlines once you're aware of them. Not procrastinating, very easily done in these roles. And I'm a huge procrastinator, and I have to really tell myself, sit down, Hannah, and get the job done. Close down all the noise in terms of, like, right now my phone is on do not disturb and my Outlook is off and Slack is off because I don't want to get disturbed here. But when I'm writing things like these slides, when I am doing something that's really important and desires my 100% attention for the 30 minutes or an hour that I'm going to give it, even if that doesn't get the task complete, but it gets it progressed, I really have to control myself and educate myself to not procrastinate. I work from home a lot of the time because I run my own business. So I see things like the kitchen behind me and think, oh, I could just do some washing quickly and grab the clothes from upstairs. And, before you know it, I have left that task. So really keeping focus and dealing with one task at a time. Decluttering frequently your emails, your filing system, both virtual and physical, your desk, your pedestal, if you have a drawer next to your desk. How often do you declutter in your home? Maybe every 3 to 6 months. Try and have the same kind of attitude towards that at work, so that you are really getting organized again and looking at everything that you've got, and then maybe updating your bigger kind of milestone to-do list off the back of it. And prioritizing over and over again. We have ever moving goalposts in these roles, so it's important to really clearly see our most crucial tasks. Take a look at those weekly, daily, whatever suits you, and change and progress things, and make sure that you're still checking in and that they're still applicable and realistic. I tend to have a couple of task lists. One is my kind of short to medium and long-term tasks, so things that are 3 to 12 months long and bigger projects that I want to nail. And then I have my kind of daily task list of things that I need to actually get done day to day, week to week. So it might be that you start to blend the two, or you have them all, like I say, I use Microsoft To Do and they're split in there. But I can see them all in one big task list if I want to, because I've set dates around them. But yeah, so I have it set in that order, but making sure that you aren't just keeping that and not checking in with the whole list at any time. Go through the whole thing at certain milestones or points in your week, in your month, whatever it might need to be to suit you, and make sure that it's still relevant. And yeah, how can being organized help? Well, being ready for that constant change and disruption that we have in our roles, managing the various streams simultaneously, maintaining flow, digging back into where we left off for when we get disrupted in our jobs because the air conditioning breaks or there's a leak from the ceiling, someone's had an accident, and we're the main first aider that everybody comes to, even though there's five others there. There's all sorts of things here that can disrupt us. So when we come back to it, it's really important that whether it's planned or unplanned change, we're thinking about how we can get back into it. Think about your projects, the last minute requests like joiners and leavers that you weren't expecting on your plate this week, making sure that we've got tools to be able to manage all those various streams simultaneously, and we can come back into them as and when we need to, in and amongst all the other things that we have to do. Setting a good example for your team and others in the office is really important. People will see you being an incredibly organized person, and you have contact points, as we've said, with basically everybody. You can be quite an inspirational person in that organization if you get this kind of thing right. So making sure that you are an effective organizer, thinking about your day-to-day jobs, plus things such as events and how much exposure that will provide you and how you operate as an individual. And taking the pressure off. It really does pay dividends to be highly organized. That mind whirling feeling overnight that I mentioned, and that overwhelm when we look at that task list and think, oh my goodness, there's so much to do here, but making sure that we're staying on top of it and it is realistic and we are being practical around our own expectations and managing that of others can really help us stay contained and minimize that feeling by being very, very organized. So the next skill we talked about was being proactive. There's a few things here that are probably quite obvious, but for me, one of the ones that a lot of people in office management roles don't do is to leave their own desk in the best state possible. A clear desk is a clear mind. So every night I have no paperwork on my desk. I put it in my drawers. The only thing that might stay there is the to-do list, although I used to tend to lock that away because sometimes there'd be stuff on there I didn't want them to know I was doing, and making sure then it gets a good clean by the cleaners overnight or first thing in the morning. And that sets a standard then for everybody else in that office who can see my desk to live up to, because that is how we should be leaving our desks ideally. Dealing with the quick wins first, those small tasks that you can smash out and cross off when you have got that satisfaction of completion. I'm someone that loves to strike out when I've done a task, which again is why Microsoft Tasks suits me, because it makes a little ping and you tick a box and it crosses it out for you when you have completed that task. So setting yourself time, time blocking to do maybe an hour of quick wins 2 or 3 times a day in your working day, and then the rest of the time is spent in 20, 30, 60-minute chunks working on specific tasks or projects. Providing effective and timely updates, really important to keep people proactively in the loop with things that they are waiting on from you. If someone is having to chase you, it's not good. You should be trying to get to people before they get to you. And that daily housekeeping check is a really good way of doing that, because you'll see people as you walk around the office. Ideally, you would do it fairly early on in the morning, and you can say, oh, Hannah, that thing that you're waiting on, it's coming in this week. And it's a way of reminding you rather than solely relying on email or Slack updates. But also, when you are delivering on a project, making sure that you're giving really effective, not too onerous updates here that are just the things that people need to know about, perhaps aligning to the objectives of the project or key milestones and things. So thinking about that and how that is a proactive mindset. Seeking out feedback, it can be challenging and can open up a big can of worms here, but it's very, very valuable to do, to go out there and say, how was I on that project? How was that event for you? How did you find the experience of working with me on that particular task? And if you're going into a new company as the office manager, going around and asking people what works right now here and what doesn't is really, really precious feedback that you can get. And then you can start to shape your role from there, and things that you should perhaps touch and improve and change versus things that you probably shouldn't if people say it works well. If it isn't broken, don't fix it kind of thing. Very valuable. Learning from our mistakes, we all make them. This is about not beating yourself up, about remaining professional, taking note, moving on gracefully and professionally, and learning from it. There is so much human element to these roles that we are going to make mistakes, and there hasn't been, until we produce the portal and the course and things, really practical training on how to do these jobs. So so many millions of us are in these roles without really much idea as to how to do them, because we can't be the master in everything. So every time you make a mistake, which hopefully won't be too much, but it will happen, just deal with it quickly, apologize if you need to, and let them know that you're going to stop it happening again by doing X, Y, and Z. And don't overcommit yourself. This is something that a lot of us do in these roles because we are naturally the go-to person, which naturally makes us the yes person. Yes, we will do this. Yes, we will do that. Yes, I will help you do this. But you really need to be aware of your own capacity here and the core of your role. And that's not to say no to people if it's not on your job spec, but try and find another way to monitor how much you're saying yes and whether you really should be saying yes, and push back if you don't think you should be. There are very good ways in which you can say no. And why is being proactive effective? Well, 1, 2, 10 steps ahead is exactly where we want to position ourselves as office managers. Would you rather come in having all sorts of issues hit you, or would you rather know what you're coming into because you've been managing that office so proactively and so effectively in an organized and iterative manner where you can as well, that you are staying ahead of what is going on and you're able to communicate that? Getting motivated. This one is really important for me because you're the only person in most organizations in these roles. And as we've already said, you interact with every level throughout the organization. So how do we get motivated in these roles? Well, first of all, I think it's about figuring out what inspires you. What is it that gives you that fire in your belly satisfaction feeling, or that warms your heart because you love it? Find out what that is and hang on to it. For me, as an example, it's training people and doing things like this, sharing my knowledge, because passing on that experience, sharing my stories, allows me to go home satisfied at the end of each day. And I've always enjoyed doing that in my office management roles and mentoring people as well. Keep motivators around you. They could be personal or professional effects, certifications, feedbacks, things that trigger a spark in you that you're proud of. You may have heard of something like a smile file, where people who send you emails or give you recommendations saying you've done really well, thank you for all that work and effort you put into this project, or for sorting that issue out for me with my desk, whatever it might be. Keep those, call it a smile file or congratulations or go Hannah file or whatever you might want to do, and go back to it when you're feeling demotivated, or when you're procrastinating, or when you feel like you cannot do the job that you are given to do. Follow motivators, surround yourself with them. We've got all sorts of people within our network who are motivating and empowering each other, which is great, but also people who you find inspirational on social media, books that fit in with your inspiring factors, and keeping good company. That could be things like people at work as well, mentors, or people that you aspire to be like. Learn to know yourself. Note down when your motivation is at its best and also at its worst. What is driving that? Because then you'll understand, okay, well, perhaps these are tasks I don't enjoy because of this, and that keeps my motivation low. So I need to ensure when I'm working on those kind of tasks, I've got a good degree of things that keep my motivation high in the mix somewhere there as well. Don't overthink it. If a particular piece of work makes you feel unmotivated, come back to it. Start something that does motivate you and support other people. There's no greater satisfaction for me in these roles than supporting others and making sure that we are getting out there and helping people. And communicating. So this one is really important, as I said, both in terms of our written communication, but also our verbal communication and our physical communication. So how we look when we are communicating, the perception that we're giving off. So there's a few different things here. It's really important to learn your style and responses. Both in terms of being an active listener, so the different listening styles that are out there, making a note of your own body language and that of the other people, the people that are communicating to you and those others who are part of that conversation or the communication. Silence is golden sometimes, and I have to remember this one myself. Sometimes silence is okay. It allows others to continue their thought process by not speaking or communicating during that time, and they're consuming the message that's been delivered so that they can then deliver a response to that. It allows people thinking and processing time. And it's important with that to therefore not interrupt people at times, or to interject, or to try and finish off each other's sentences and so on. And we all do it. We're all bad at communicating these days, unfortunately. Asking questions is a really another really good way of demonstrating that you're invested in a conversation. So asking clarifying questions, for example, can you repeat what you've just said, or can you say that again, or this is what I've just heard you say, is that right? Or this is my understanding of what you just said, is that correct? And so on. So clarifying questions are really important and a great tool to use for good, positive communication methods. Being prepared. This is one of my top tips before every meeting, before every phone call, particularly when you're meeting with somebody that is a stakeholder for you, be they a line manager, be they one of your team, or whatever it might be, is to be prepared for that meeting. So having 2 to 3 bullets as a minimum on your notepad before you go into those meetings, to provide updates, to ask questions, to ask for clarification rather, all those different things that you can prepare for in a meeting, having the objective in mind, so that when you go into that meeting, you are prepared and you know what the desired outcome is, at least for you. Obviously making sure that you're making notes throughout that meeting as well, and trying to have an understanding of what the meeting's about, and therefore what your input is and your value is that you are bringing to that meeting. Relax. It's very important to be ourselves when we're communicating. Even in those stressful conversations, in order for it to be effective, we need to remain professional, calm, but also have a self-awareness. So again, looking at our body language and that which we're portraying versus having a note of others. But yeah, trying to relax into it is really important. And I've already mentioned this, written communication is just as key. Now, if you're sending a big all-staff email or Slack message, or you're doing a notice that's going to go up somewhere and pretty much everybody in your company is going to see it, is it worth coming back to that before you click send? Maybe an hour. If it doesn't need to go right away, can you wait an hour and recheck it? Or can somebody check that for you, a confidant that you trust, before that message goes out there, so that it's delivered in the best possible way and therefore received in the best way, and the message is understood and people follow that instruction, that advice, that action, whatever it might be. Having that second pair of eyes can be really valuable. So we're going to look briefly now at listening skills. So there's 4 main listening skills here, and you may have heard of some of these already. So appreciative listening is when we're listening for enjoyment. So think about a comedian that you like, or a podcast or radio show that you like listening to. That is appreciative listening, where you're holding people that you're listening to perhaps in high regard and you're enjoying it. Empathic listening is when we listen empathically to show mutual concern. So this is the one we often go into when we're speaking to friends, family members, colleagues who are sharing, negative stories with us or difficult situations with us that we may or may not be able to empathize with, but we are trying to identify with them the whole way through by understanding the situation in which they're in and trying to step into their shoes. And it's a very difficult one to do, because we often go into it where we put ourselves in their shoes, whereas actually you've got to remove yourself and your biases and your opinions from the situation in some ways, and try and really see it from their perspective. It's a very important skill to do, but we all have that process in our heads when we're listening to someone. I'm finding it really hard at work to communicate with this person. They've sent me an email and I think it's and you're kind of already analyzing and judging and preparing a response in your head. That's not good listening. That is not active listening. Active listening is really muting all that background noise going on in your head and just listening. And then empathic listening is trying to be in their shoes as them. Very difficult one to do. Comprehensive listening, well, you're probably doing that if you're still watching us now, because that is listening to lectures, listening to news programs, whatever it might be, where you are trying to understand the message that is being delivered. So if you ask somebody for directions, for example, you're listening to comprehend what they are telling you so that you can remember and then go on your way to the place that you need to get to. This is really very active in terms of a listening process. And number 4 is critical listening. So this is where we're listening to evaluate the message that is being delivered, the content that is being delivered to us. And as a critical listener, what we're doing is listening to the whole message, all of what is being delivered, and then we're analysing it and evaluating the pieces that we heard. And then we might regurgitate, well, this is what I heard, this is what I understood, or whatever it might be. Can you clarify? And so on from there. So that's critical listening. So do you know how to select your listening style? It's really important. And you have the choice. When you become a very active listener, you have the choice to tap into any of these. And when you start to realize and recognize which ones you're using, you become a much more active listener. So how can we harness these 4 top skills that we think are the ones that we really need to excel in our office management roles? Well, first and foremost, doing online courses or classes that we can go to will really help us. So is there any that we can take or do online or go to in person to develop in these areas and develop our strengths and improve the areas that we perhaps need developing? Are there any opportunities to ask for feedback? So can we go to our line manager, HR, direct reports, colleagues, the most senior person that we liaise with in the company, and just, very informally say, hey, how's it going? Can you give me some feedback, please? How did that project go? How did you find that piece of work I did for you? It's very important. And I think when you start asking for feedback, you often then get it voluntarily, rather than having to always seek it out. So when you then do a good project, you are potentially opening yourself up to get that positive feedback without having to seek it out. Taking time to reflect when we can, but not overthinking it. So with the goods and the bads, what did I enjoy? What did I do well there? Why was it successful? How long did it take me? Where do I need to improve? I always have a piece of paper for lessons learned with some of the bigger pieces of work that we do, both for clients and also for our office management members in terms of events and things we put on. So the awards that we host every year, I have a lessons learned sheet that we set up from day one of planning right the way through to the end of the ceremony and the day after, of what can we do better, what didn't work this year well enough, and what suggestions are coming at us, so that we can always try and reflect on how it's going whilst it's occurring. What tools do you already have in your arsenal? What is already in the bag? And can you cherry pick those accordingly? So if you are already very organized, is there anything else you can do to take that a bit further and be far more proactive, so that you link the two skills in the top 4 that we've suggested together? If you are already, I don't know, very, very motivated and you know what the passion is there anything you can do in there in terms of what's motivating you to drive further forward towards being a master in particular areas of the job that you really enjoy? Think before you speak or type. This comes back to our communication one, and how effective we can be or ineffective if we speak or type too quickly without giving ourselves that little bit of time first to think and reflect on it, and what potentially is going to be received by the people reading it or listening to the message that we're conveying. So just taking that little bit of time will ensure that you are communicating really effectively. Visualize possible outcomes ahead of time. So very difficult to do, but again, when you are thinking about certain projects that you're running or certain scenarios that you're doing, what are the outcomes that you want to achieve, and what are the potential outcomes of the way that you are going about it, and the people you're involving, the method you're using to communicate? It's quite a big one, this one, but what are the possible outcomes of the actions that I'm taking here, and are they the ones that I want? So you're thinking through quite actively and proactively the next pieces to the puzzle here. And then finally, setting realistic goals and writing them down and ticking them off when you've achieved them. So for me, it goes back to that, to-do list of my kind of daily, weekly to-do list versus my 3 to 6 to 12-month plan, and making sure that I'm setting them realistically and moving them around if I need to, because as I said, we are constantly rejuggling in these roles. So it's really important to recognize that things are going to shift and change. But it is very important to check them off and to communicate when we have achieved them, because that gives us that self-motivation and that satisfaction again. And that's it for this class. For more information, sign up to our platform, www.theofficemanagementportal.com, for free as a member. There are payable memberships as well from £25 a month, where you can access downloadable templates. There's over 250 of them, including some of the things I may have mentioned in this particular session, and more masterclasses with me and other experts in our industry. Have a good day. Take care.